All right, good morning, everybody. Can my online folks hear me?
Yes.
Test, test. Can you guys hear me? I'm going to say you can and assume that the issue's on my end. Let me check. See. Now, when you guys just say something, please.
Morning.
Good morning. That works.
Morning.
All right, good morning. There we go. I hear you guys. All right, so all right, guys. So this past week, we started on SQL. We kind of went back through some resume processes, and we also revisited the functional test cases because I know that some of you guys were having issues on it, and I want to make sure that we're all on the same page with that.
Still have some questions.
I figured that's the feedback I've gotten, right? So as far as the agenda for today is, you already know, we're going to do our retro and planning session as every week, right? Then after that, we are going to complete one more functional test case together as a class. And then from there, we will touch on one resume example. And then we're going to pivot into our SQL select statements and focus on that for the day. All right? So before we get into it all, let me send out this link to you guys. I'm sending it in the chat and the Slack channel. So let's just take 5 minutes and please add to the retro. And I'm going to stop sharing for 1 second, but please keep doing your thing. How's the resume process coming along?
Really good. Still in process.
So, fair enough, yeah. It's always going to be continuous work in progress.
Yeah,
Even mine.
Started. That's already good.
Good, good. That's all we want. Progress, so we have something to work off of together.
And the story and the ticket prepare interview. Prepare resume. So just move it to VAT. Should I like put there any signs instead done?
For the resume bullets or the resume itself?
Resume itself.
Story.
If you have it done, you can just put done for now, that's fine. If you want also, just add it to the story. So if you guys have already a completed, or at least a version 1 that you want to work off of and share with us, just add it to the story. so we can review it when we have some time. And then, of course, we're still going to have our mentoring sessions with all of you to go over it one-on-one.
Let me add there something. Guys, so for resume for right now and LinkedIn profile, when you're creating right now LinkedIn profile, just for right now, just hide it, because some of you, we will give you for resume the company that you were practicing and doing internship for them. We will split you into different companies. So for right now, just hide it, and especially on LinkedIn, when making setup in settings actually to turn off notification for all your networking. Because I mentioned that someone put a new company over there and it's pop up in my feeds right away. So you don't want to, put yourself in a weak position, right? So just hide for right now your LinkedIn profile. Once you will get the mock interview with us, because I see some people already put their stuff and we need to refine it. So don't hurry, especially people who is actually want to jump on the market. Awesome. Check up with myself, Denise, or Azad as well. And then we'll give you a green light to go on the market and you should be good. All right? Just don't rush. Don't rush. This thing is very important.
Just hide all accounts. Like, just make it
Hide, just hide your LinkedIn
Visible
specific. Yeah,
public profile off.
yeah. Make it invisible. All right? And once we'll review your profile, once we'll review your resume, then you should be good to go. All right? All right, that's it.
And there is also a way, if you do the updates, you can there's a little checkbox to notify network. All right, so you can uncheck that so no one is notified as well when you do that. All right, let's pivot into this. So what we have so far. What went well? Sprint 7. Prepare the interview videos. To prepare the interview videos were really helpful. Fantastic. Good stuff, Evgeny. That was a good video you did, the tips. Your AC test was very helpful. Awesome. Definitely the acceptance criteria. You're going to be working with that regularly. You need to understand just what it's about and how to read it and how to make the most of it. Nice to have you back. Thank you. Appreciate that. Very good explanation of functional testing on Wednesday. Great. And I know some of you guys still have questions. There was other stories, of course. So we're going to be sure to revisit at least one today. If needed, we can do another. But I want to make sure we're all good on that. What can we improve faster? Understood. So we've actually kind of condensed some of the weeks. We actually are kind of moving along a little faster than you realize, and especially with the extra sessions Marina provided. So we're a little bit ahead right now, and which is good because it gives us more time to revisit those functional test cases. And as we start going into these more technical topics such as SQL and API and automation, you'll definitely have more questions, and we want to have more time to focus on that. So we are moving faster, whether or not you realize it.
I also want to add that while we're moving faster, we want to push you on the market as soon as possible, so you can do actually job searching while you'll be in class. Because we mentioned that from previous boot camps, we actually were expecting that people start searching after graduation. But we realized that you will be doing better, and most of people who did it in advance, they found a job faster because just environment, Once you'll be out of the class, you'll be by your own, and probably sometimes that could be discouraging as well. So that's why we are trying to move as much as possible to push you on the market. And as I said, prepare your resume, check up with us, and we will kick you out to the market. All right.
It's going to be a soft boot, though. Soft boot.
Yeah.
Little much. Yeah. Task AC was not fully clear. Yeah, definitely. I understand that, guys. I totally agree with you. Some of the AC, some of the acceptance criteria isn't super clear. And that's just kind of, you're going to be coming across that on a regular basis. Not everything's going to be super clear. You just kind of got to extrapolate the information that was given to you and be able to work with what you have and prepare your questions for whenever they can be answered. So please keep that in mind. Would be great to do more test cases together just to practice. Yes, I agree with you, and we will be doing more today, so do not worry about that. More information, more practice, and increase the speed of teaching. We are doing all of that. We got plenty of information for you guys. We're doing more practice today, and as I mentioned, we are moving a bit faster. I would like more mobile testing with Marina and more details and concrete programs. Yeah, sure, we can definitely give you some resources regarding that and point you in the right direction. Ultimately, everything that we're going over is, of course, applicable for both web applications and mobile applications. So don't stress too much about having to really focus on mobile, all right? The concepts that Marina went over and showed you with Android Studio and the SDK and Charles Proxy and how to upload all that, all right? It's good information, it's good knowledge, like it's valuable. You do want to know that. You don't need to master that right now, right? As long as you're aware of those tools and how to generally go about it, you're fine, all right? No one is going to make you set up a mobile test environment on the spot during the interview process. And that's not what you're gonna be focusing on anyways, right? So as long as you are focusing on the fundamentals that we're going over, you're golden. So do not stress too much about that, but we'll definitely give you some more resources, and I will put that as an action item as well. More sessions with Marina. All right, just let me know what you guys need and we'll schedule something if you like. To do test cases in the class, yes, we got that. I would like to have more examples of testing API and how to write test cases by testing API by using Postman Charles Proxy on our web. We have not gotten into APIs yet, so hold off on that. We will be getting into APIs next week, so it's coming. Slower. All right. Well,
So it sounds like it's a perfect pace.
yeah. Right. So for anybody who feels that this needs to go slower, again, all of this can be done essentially at your own pace, right? We are going to have extra time at the end so you can revisit things that you did not understand. We're still going to be available to help you guys out and give you that support you need. And even after the class is over, you know, you're still going to have access to all the sessions and all the videos and all the course material, and you'll still have access to us as well. So even though this might not be according to your pace right now, just do the best you can with the time that you have available, and we'll make sure you get to where you need to be in order to get on the job market. All right, cool. So AC looks good, or rather retro looks good. And let's jump to our sprint. So how did we do this sprint? All right, we've made some progress, especially
Little by little, but
little by little.
sprint to sprint, it's not better.
Exactly.
I guess issues which we touch.
Yeah, and I think we have more stories
Yes,
than the number of users, so it
That's
kind
one.
of never touches
Yes.
the
Yeah.
zero over there.
You still can see the progress.
Yeah, exactly. As long as I see a downward trend, I'm happy. All right, I just want to see a downward trend.
Yeah, in companies you probably won't see, because that gray line, it's like ideal world. I've never seen those.
All right, though, but not bad. Good job, guys. And again, if you haven't completed anything, you know, the stories are there for you in the backlog. Get to it when you can. Watch the stories, do the work. You need to know this stuff. All right, so I am going to close this out. Oh, and also, guys, if you're still, as I just mentioned, if you missed it, if you're still, well, of course, you should still be going through the resume development process. But if you already have a version that's done, feel free to share it, attach it, upload it to the story that you were working on for Write Your Resume, so we can just easily reference it when we start going through these stories. And we'll still, of course, have our one-on-one sessions with you. So I'm just gonna close this. Let's move these items to the backlog. And let's see what we got for this sprint. All right, so sprint 8, here are our stories. Oh, one thing I wanna say is, so I noticed I prepared these stories like a day or two early this time, and someone already started trying to grab the stories. Guys, do not jump ahead, please, all right? Especially if you see that there's only one ticket created. If you want to start working on it, that's fine. Just don't assign it to yourself. Don't start adding comments to it. Just hold up. All right, guys. So the first one that we have is watch SQL testing video. Please watch the following video. Oh, 1 second. Let me do my Scrum Poker. All right, I'm putting out the Scrum Poker link in our basic channel, so please go ahead and log into that so everyone can have a say. All right. So the first one that we have is watch SQL testing video. Please watch the following video, database testing in software testing. And this is a 52-minute video. That's all we have for this story, all right? So real simple, watch a video, 58 minutes.
Was that from previous class?
This is not from a previous class.
Many rows over
Nope.
here, so this is row.
Not, so hour-long video going over database testing. Right, got most of it. Sergey, Roxana. Maxim. All right, glad to see more people jumping on. Great. All right, well, we have ones mostly. All right, ones across the board. We have a 2, 2. All right, just for the sake of time, and again, the average, right, we have, right, 1. So I'm gonna go ahead and assign this a 1. Next one we have is going to be practice with SQL. All right, practice with SQL. So you're going to practice using an online database provided by Oracle. You will need to create a free account to gain access. All right. We're going to go visit this site right here. And we're going to end up here. All right. And then you can just go ahead and basically click this Start Coding button, and it's going to make you go through the sign-up process. Then once you have that sign-up process completed, I just want to walk you guys through this. You will sign in. You're going to wind up on this home page. Not this one. You're going to wind up right here. And then from here, you can go ahead and just click Code Library. and you're gonna search, all right? You're gonna search for this specific one right here, querying and filtering rows databases for developers, all right? Don't get scared when you see the developers part. And then this is the one that you're gonna work on, all right? I'm just gonna click this. It's gonna take us over here, give us some good information about what this is all about, what the modules are, all right? And this is just gonna be all basic select statements, right? We're gonna be using some constraints so we can filter some of the search results. Everything's really basic, all right? We're not getting into anything crazy, so don't be scared about the developer part again. And then before you even start, just go through this information, understand what you're gonna get into. It has a really good explanation, tells you a little bit about the database. It's a real simple database. And so there's a couple modules. You're just going to go through this. Again, just read everything and make sure you're good to go. And then once you feel comfortable, once you're ready to start going through this, just click Run Tutorial. And if you want, just favorite it so you don't have to search for it every time. And then here we are. All right, we see this this SQL input screen right here, and this is where the magic is going to happen. And then we want to go ahead. You're going to have to, of course, start off with this prerequisite, right? So this is what's going to create the database for you. And all you got to do is just click this, tutorial setup, boom, just run setup. Setup complete. This is what you see. You should see, right? One new object created, a nice green check mark. Everything's good. I could close this out, and now we can start going through this. So then you can just click this first one, and this is what it's expecting you to do, right? And you would have already, once you read through that initial page, that overview, you're already going to be familiar. And just to start off, right, I'll do one with you. So select star from toys, and let's execute. No, semicolons is going to be used for like coding, not statements, not SQL statements. So like if you're doing C# or it's just more of like a visual indicator that that's like the end, but you don't need to actually input a semicolon.
It's the end of the command if you have many commands. So just to separate them out from each other, but because it's a single command, you do that.
See, and so just did this simple select statement, and I got results returned to me. And then you're just going to go through and do these different modules, and I'm sure this isn't going to take you guys too long, and you can just play around with it yourself, do some other queries, and then once you have this account set up, there's a lot of other different libraries that you can use in here, or a lot of other different practice sessions. Some of them are definitely way too much, right? And you guys don't need to worry about that. So just check it out, see what you're comfortable with, see what you're interested in doing. But for the purpose of this story, the focus is this, all right? So, right, we're going to set up the account to find that specific session, and again, right, so you should be good to go. And then today we're also going to be continuing on with SQL Bolt. Dennis showed you a little bit about that last week. All right, so you guys may have been already playing with it on your own. So then when we go through it today, it should be pretty quick. All right, most of you guys. All right, great. If it's not, I'm gonna be here, questions, answers, right? We're gonna do that whole back and forth thing.
I would say up to 7 tasks was not that bad, but 8th one start like blowing mind.
Yeah, so understood, yeah. So we'll play with that today. Whatever we don't finish, just continue on with your own. And I personally, I really like the format of SQL Bolt, right? But we're going through that together as a class. And Dennis already showed you a little bit about that last week. So I want to give you more resources, right? So that's why I come check out Oracle, really straightforward, just going to give you more information, another database to play with. And there's a lot of other things in there. And we're also, I'm trying to find some other online databases for you guys to play with, but I have more to come in just a moment. So hold up, hold up.
Oracle database is one of the biggest and the most popular for huge enterprise projects. So it's very nice to have that on your resume, even though there is not much of difference really.
Yeah.
But I mean, you saw it, right? And it's no different.
Yeah, exactly. Like as Dennis is mentioning, right? Widely used, very well known. It's a multi-billion-dollar company, absolute behemoth. And it's just one of those things, right? When you think about those resume bullet points, right? Hey, you've worked with an Oracle database. You've executed select statements. You may be executing joins as well, all right? All the things you need to keep in mind. These are the things that make you marketable. These are the things that show you have more technical ability as opposed to just writing basic test cases. You need to, of course, know that, right? But everything's building. It's a foundation.
Who can tell me what's the programming language for the most times will work with Oracle database? It's the most popular language in the world.
Python.
Java.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, yeah. One check, 1, 2, 3. So, yeah, basically, if you see Oracle database, then it will, most of the times it will mean the company is using Java, because Oracle, Java is basically Oracle programming language.
Yeah, good point. Personally, I have actually never dealt with like a pure Oracle database. All the companies I've been with have just been .NET houses utilizing SQL Server. So, but either way, if you know how to query, you're golden. All right. All right. So this is our story. What do we got? Estimates. Let's see, so just to answer Natalia's question, can I practice on MySQL? If you've already installed it and you have a database to play with, ultimately, right? Because you can install SQL Server, you can install MySQL, you can install NoSQL, but you need a database to play with, right? So if you have a database to play with and you don't want to do this, that's fine, but ultimately it's going to be harder for me to help you if you have questions, right? So I recommend utilizing the resources we've provided so we can all work with each other. Your teammates can work with you as well. And yeah, so online resources is kind of what we're leaning towards right now, just because we've had difficulties in the past with students setting up the database, installing the software and all this stuff. So we're trying to simplify it a bit. But again, there's more to come in a minute. So where's my mouse? What are we waiting on? Lana, Amila. All right, last one. All right, I'm gonna boot you in a second, Alana, if you don't give an estimate. And perfect. All right, we got a 1. All right. Let's see. A couple ones, 3s, 2s, 3s.
Amila, please tell us.
So at this point, I'm not even going to even bother asking for like justifications because I already understand, right? Like it's just going to be more complicated for some people and more time is needed. And so that's fine. Overall, though, I see lots of 3s. I think 3 is probably going to be a fair estimate for this because there's a lot of extra time you could put into it if you want. You can open up some other of the practice sessions or exercises in there. So for this story, we are going to put a 3 on it. All right, next one. Prepare SQL interview questions. All right, so we want you guys to read this first. Top 50 SQL interview questions and answers. All right, so 50 questions and answers. All this is very important information, of course. One thing I'll say, just looking through this, is Again, right, all we're focusing on is the basic concepts of SQL. SQL can be immensely complex. All right, there's so many different things you can do with SQL, and there's so many built-in functions, and there's really complex joins. There's different kinds of joins. There's database normalization rules. There's views. There's indexes. There's all this stuff. All right, and you could go down a rabbit hole and overwhelm yourself with stuff that is not relevant to what you're going to be doing in your first job. All right, the only thing that you really need to understand is how to do basic select statements, how to do joins, what's the difference between a left join and a right join, all right? And as long as you know that, you're golden, all right? You want to also understand what a foreign key is and a primary key is, and that's the most you need to know about SQL, all right? If you practice that and get that down and can speak about that intelligently and you have that experience under your belt, you're golden. Do not worry about unions. Do not worry about database normalization. Do not worry about views or triggers and indexes or any of that stuff. All right. I'll tell you from my personal experience, I'm not even an expert in all those other areas that I just mentioned. I know all that stuff. I know how to implement it, but I'll never create a view. I'll never create a stored procedure. That's just not what you're going to be doing as a QA. That's developer stuff or a database administrator stuff. So don't get caught up in that. So great, read through this just to, again, just have a general idea, but don't stress this stuff, all right? So this is going to be the first link, and then we have this 19-minute video.
Let me start with a brief explanation of the database.
So this should be real quick then, not even 19 minutes really. Yeah. No Indian accent, don't worry. And then we have, of course, the interview questions. And a lot of this is kind of overlapping, all right? So you're going to see similar questions from Guru99. Dennis is kind of going to be going over some of the stuff here. And then we just have these interview questions for you to go over as well, all right? Just 2 pages, 2 pages, right? And again, you're going to already have gone over this in the prior links. So not bad. This should not be too much, but a lot of information to read and consume. So, it will take a little bit of time for that. So, estimates for this. All right, Alana, looks like your last one again. Estimate, please. Round and round we go, and ooh, oh no, okay, cool. So let's see what we got. 3s, 1s, 2s. All right, okay. I'm gonna say I think a 1 is a little too low for this. I mean, you could definitely do it within 1 point, depending how comfortable you are with everything. But again, right?
It's possible for 1 point, but need time for.
Exactly right. You want to revisit it, all right? Because you're not just going to read this stuff once and be done with it, right? You might have to come back another day this week and revisit that stuff, definitely. So with that said, 3. Yes, go ahead.
Practicing the interview questions will be time consuming too on this one, which is why I put a bit more for this particular issue. But if you don't feel that's the case, then I don't, necessarily think it might be 3 points.
Okay, understood. Thank you for explaining that. We do have those 50 interview questions, yes. A lot of that stuff you don't need to worry about too much. So really out of those 50, I'm gonna say maybe like probably like 20 of them are really what you need to focus on and memorize and understand. So kind of keep that into account, but I do totally understand your reasoning. So I'm gonna go with the 2 on this, guys, because we do have some other stuff coming up. But again, right, if it goes over, let's look when we have our retros, let us know if things take longer so we can adjust. And our last one. All right, so this is an optional one, but we're still going to go ahead and estimate this. So as I mentioned before, right, or really rather early on when we started this, right, we introduced you guys to WoStork. We told you that we're going to be using the APIs that WoStork has provided to us so we can do some API testing. That's going to be next week. We have access to their database, so you can query the database, you can find your user, you can find order history, you can see the relational database setup that they have in there, right? Now, to get access to that, it's a little bit of a pain, all right? It's a little bit of a pain, I'll be honest with you. And that's how come it doesn't really matter what database we're using, right? We just need a database that you can practice queries on because the concepts are exactly the same. But we want to give you guys the opportunity to still have access to that database, all right? So in order to get access to the database, you need to first install a VPN, which is a virtual private network client. And that's going to basically open a channel of communication between your computer and the database within WoStork servers, all right? So to install the VPN, you're going to just follow this link, and this is just one of our Confluence pages, and all the information is here. So this is, you guys are all familiar with this, and if you just go down to useful links and resources, you'll see this WoStork VPN and the DB Beaver link. So to install the VPN, you just need to go through this setup, and it is computer with a K. So you're going to install this VPN client called Windscribe and go through these steps. All right.
Work both for Windows and Mac.
Yes, it works for both. For both, no issues. So you need to go through these steps to get it set up. And once you have this initial setup, the key is, all right, and this is where the painful part kind of comes in, or at least pain point number 1. All right. You need to be assigned the correct IP address in order to get access to the database. So when you click on the connect button or the on button, this power button for WinSubscribe, it's going to randomly assign you an IP address within their list. You may not be assigned the right IP address the first time, or the second time, or the third time, all right? So you gotta toggle it on and off until you get assigned the right IP address. And I know for some of our, say, East Coast students, it might be a little bit more difficult to get assigned that right IP address the first few times. So ultimately, if you want to do this, and I recommend that you do this, all right, but again, it is optional. You're gonna have to toggle it a couple times until you get this IP address. You need this IP address in order to get access to the WoStork database, all right?
Can't stop it manually.
No, I can't type it in manually, unfortunately. So really, this is kind of the most painful part, all right? It's pain point number 1. So once you have this set up, great, you're golden. Then, of course, we need the actual database itself. So here we have dbeaver, which is going to be the database program that we're utilizing. Or rather, the program we're going to be using is Postgre, which you can find here. And just go ahead and download it. All right, it's going to be standard process. Just download it, set it up, boom, you're good to go. Once you have that set up, you can then, you need to pass in this information in order to basically authenticate yourself with the database. right? So you need to just follow these steps over here. All right, you'll be using a PostgreSQL database. Input this information. All right, you're gonna input it right here. And then you can go ahead and click test connection to verify everything's working. All right, if you get a green light, you're golden. All right, now, again, keep in mind though, in order for that to work, you need to have the VPN installed first, and you need to be connected to the correct IP address. Otherwise, it's going to fail. So once you have done that, you will have access to the Wolfstar database, and you can start doing a bunch of things to it. And once you have access, you can, here are your first 5 questions, or first 5 challenges, exercises rather, for you to do to play around with the Wolfstar database to just see how things are set up and laid out. There's going to be a bunch of tables. You can hop around in it. Come Monday, when we have Monday session, that's when I'll have my database open and connected to the VPN, and we'll go through it together and show you what it's about. All right, but I want to give you guys the opportunity to set it up on your own, and we'll work on this together. So even if you don't get access to it, you get frustrated, whatever the case may be, that's fine. Again, I'm going to show my database or my screen, share my screen with you guys, and we're going to do these questions together and play around with the database. So, with that said, what do we think our estimate would be?
1, because we don't have any more points.
Well, so like I said, right, we have a little bit more time towards this tail end, and some of these more complicated ones are going to be stretched out. To your point about the sprint timeline, of course, right? What's our total sprint point count? We're at 6 right now.
So we can have to.
1, 3, 2.
We're still just going to go ahead and estimate this. It's fine. We're just going to estimate this, and it's one of those things. Even in a real world scenario, right? If you find yourself in a situation where you may be potentially maxed out, some of the stories we're already aware that it might take a little bit less time. Others might take a little bit more. So we could still bring in this story knowing that we're exceeding it with the hopes of completing it still. Worst case scenario, and again, we're talking about real world environments, right? Worst case scenario, we come next Saturday, nobody got around to it, right? That's fine. We can just roll over the story into our next sprint and continue on. But it's already been estimated. We know how much time it's going to take, right? Nice. Yes, 3 it is. That looks good, guys. You're all on the same page. Mostly. Definitely. If you could get it done in 1 point, Yulia, I'd be very impressed. If you get it done in 1 point, hey, let me know. I think we're having a little bit of an internet lag. All right, cool. All right, guys, we have all of our points estimated, or all of our stories estimated. 9 points, a lot for sure. But we can knock down 3 and we're at 6, which is definitely doable. And again, this is optional, so don't stress it too much. But I do recommend getting it set up. All right, so of course we'll start the sprint at the end of class. Let me clone some stuff and just hold off. Please don't grab stories. Please don't grab stories. All right, just hold off. All right, guys. So that's all we have for our sprint planning and retro. So that went good. And let's pivot into another topic. So functional test cases. Let us get back into that. All right, guys. So, any recommendations on the story to do?
Password.
Password? Password. All right, password it is.
Password was a simple one.
All right, then you're going to walk us through this password one.
One of the
Oh, yes, hard logic would be hardest.
I would say it's a big penalty.
Sorry, there we go. I'm just going to grab one that hasn't been taken. I'll assign this to myself. Put this in progress. All right, so what's our AC? Password must not mimic username, be a mixture of alphanumeric, be a mixture, okay. Be a mixture of alphanumeric characters, a mixture of uppercase and lowercase characters, one special character, a minimum of 8 characters. Okay, I can see why this would be a hard one. Yes.
Yeah, the question we had on this one was whether or not we had to prepare separate test case for each requirement, or whether these requirements could be listed as separate steps under one test case.
Good question. That's what I started thinking to myself once I started reading these too. So let's see, how would we do this? Let's see, password must not mimic username. Be a mixture. Must be a mixture of alphanumeric characters, mixture of uppercase characters.
How I did it?
How do you do it?
So for the first one, not mimic username, it was simple. You just not copy paste your login and password.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's not going to be the same. Not going to be a duplicate, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but for the rest of them, I create, like, for example, ideal password of 8 characters, which include all the criteria.
Mm-hmm.
And for example, for the second one, I exclude numbers and create password and say that it's not going to be not going to work if you don't put the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
For the third one,
so wait, for that second one, you only did that one?
Yeah.
Okay.
For the third one, I use the same ideal password, but I exclude from their uppercase characters all lowercase characters.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same way I described that it's not gonna work because it's no uppercase or lowercase characters. For the fourth one, also I choose ideal password, exclude from their special character,
mm-hmm.
and do the same way. And of course, for the last one, I choose ideal password and exclude from there one letter or character, and describe that it's not gonna work because it's less than 8. So as a main idea, I got the ideal password, and then I start excluding, like, for each point,
mm-hmm.
I start excluding not, like, it's not going to be an acceptance.
I get you.
Criteria.
It's separate test case.
Yes, of course.
So from what I'm hearing, it sounds like you did a great job, definitely, right? You went ahead and created test cases the way you needed to. To your point, or your question, Mika, there should be an individual test case for each of these requirements because it requires a slightly different test case. Now, so you only have 5 test cases?
Not 5, more than 5, I would say.
More than 5?
Yes,
okay.
Because some of them I did negative test case as well.
Yes.
And positive. So yeah.
Okay, perfect. So
Negative test case, same as bugs?
Is negative test case the same as bugs? Was that the question?
Yeah.
A negative test case would essentially be if a negative test case was valid, it would become a bug. So essentially,
Oh, I see. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. So essentially, if we want to make sure that the minimum of 8 character requirement is met. Otherwise, if it's not, that would be a bug. And it is considered a negative test case because we are testing for that negative scenario for this story. But it's one of those things, right? Functional test cases also kind of include some negative testing as well. So the concept of negative testing is specifically going against the requirements for something, right? Now, functional testing is writing test cases based off of these user stories for the sprint. And when you create those functional test cases for these user stories during a sprint, you do need to also have those negative scenarios. So in cases like that, there's that overlap. But yeah, if anything ever fails like that, it's going to ultimately turn into a bug.
Yeah, you can create a bug only about the wording pop-up message because it's not gonna give you any requirements. When it's pop-up, it says password, something wrong with the password, but it's not gonna say you what is the requirements for the password. You're not gonna. You have to like start playing around to get an idea of what's gonna get an ideal password for this. So
yeah,
this is only one thing.
And so with that, like you bring up a great point, right? So if a user is inputting these passwords, or if you as a tester are validating these changes, this is the acceptance criteria you're given. Great, you have that general understanding of what needs to be done and what's to be expected. However, you don't know if there should be some sort of validation message presented. All right, we might revisit that in a second then. But we don't know the validation messages that should be displayed. Should it be in line with the password, or rather right underneath that password field, and we list off the specific issue? So password does not meet minimum requirements of 8 characters, or should there be a modal displayed with the specific information? Or should there be that generic message that we have right now that doesn't inform the user what exactly needs to be changed? So it makes it a little bit hard to test this, right? But you understand what needs to be tested. Yeah. The only thing that's left out there, the uncertainty, is what's the message and where should it be displayed, right? So this would be one of those scenarios where when we have our stand-up meetings, if we had our stand-up meeting with the developers over here, we can go ahead and ask them, or we can ask the product owners to get clarity. But we can still move forward right now and create test cases, and we're just waiting on that one point to be clarified for the message. So I'll just go ahead and create a couple test cases real quick. And just copy this so I can see it over here. So first one, password must not be same as username, right? And if you wanted to, you can even kind of copy and paste that not mimic username. So password must not mimic username, right? Straight from the acceptance criteria of it.
It's the point about specific, remote specific. We need to clarify what exactly, which one specific symbol we can use, which can, or we can use all, or some restriction.
Usernames?
No, not in username.
Special characters.
Yeah.
But special characters is always
so. Yeah, when you hear special characters, that encompasses everything.
Because very often when you make registration, or you can't use some special characters. You can, some not.
Yeah, you do bring up a good point though, right? In some cases, there might be a couple special characters that we allow, like an underscore, right? We might allow an underscore. So in cases like that, we need to have that explicitly told to us. In this case, when we're given that general no special characters, then you can move forward with understanding that no special characters, there's no exceptions to the rule, unless it was said otherwise, unless something otherwise was said. But good point.
Yeah, just if you want to be clear, absolutely clear, we try to do it.
And it's one of those things though, it's like, well, you can go ahead and bring up that question to get clarity, but there comes a point in time where, or rather, it's almost like you're questioning the person, and as if they don't know what they're doing, right? And so if that's the information you're given and there's not any gaps in it, then you can move forward with that. You don't need to necessarily ask them, well, what special characters, right? Because they're giving you that general. But again, right, you make a good point. You do make a good point. So password must not be same as username. Right, so let's go to our steps. Given user is on registration page, when the user enters username as password, for here, then just text. Thank you. Then username is in password field. And user enters the username in confirm password field. And user clicks
Robert,
submit. Yes.
just want to let you know it's then, right? Under the.
Oh, thank you.
Can we use can we exclude this one step and just put the username on the second step? You can put unexpected results, then username in password field and confirmation field. Because it's gonna be, it seems like it.
You could. You totally could.
We can only exclude that third step,
We could. Yeah, you bring up a good point, right? We totally can. Right now, we're just going to leave it as is.
This section is the same.
It is, right? And you get it, because you can put given username, or rather, when the user inputs username into both password fields, right? And click submit button, then some message is shown, right? So we can. And you know what? Let's do that. Let's do that. Dump you. When user enters, why is it so weird? When user enters username as password in both password
because we
fields.
have more steps here because we have to check that checkboxes as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So given user is on registration page, when user enters username as password in both password fields, then username is in both password fields, actually, and before we even submit, and user fills out rest of form, all right, then rest of form is completed.
But it's not actually, you don't need to fill it up.
You don't?
You can leave it empty and then just check the checkboxes that,
So,
you agree. That's it. 2 checkboxes.
Oh, all right.
So you don't have to put a zip code or something like that. You can just skip it. Yeah. It's not the case.
For the purposes of testing, though, we will go ahead and have the whole form filled out. All right.
In this case, we should create absolutely similar test case, but not login page, login model.
Yeah.
Because we have end page and model. It's maybe different.
You a very good point. Very good point. Wait, well, no. Because the registration is not a modal. You're taken to a page. It's only login modal, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, you go ahead and confirm that. Let me know. But I believe it's just going to be that registration page. All right. So when user fills out rest of the form, then rest of the form is filled out, and user clicks submit button. Then error is displayed. And here, if we knew the specific error message that can be displayed, we would put it in the story, right? And so some message. How's that look? Does that make sense? Given user is on registration page, when user enters username as password in both password fields, then username is in both password fields, and user fills out rest of form, then rest of form is completed, and user clicks submit button, then error is displayed, some message, right? Oh, it's good. All right, so this would take care of this first one. What about the second one? Be a mixture of alphanumeric characters. It must be a mixture of both. So this one, how many test cases can we create from this one?
No. Imagine.
I would say
As
two.
minimum three.
Two or three.
What? All right, I definitely.
Test cases.
How many?
I think just one, just because it's a mixture, right?
It's definitely going to be more than one, all right? And I'm leaning towards two. I hear a three, though. What's the third?
Three, yeah.
What's the third?
Ideal.
Only numeric
With
content.
digit, with letters, and a mixture.
I'm sorry, say it again?
No, with digit, with letters, and a mixture.
Yes, exactly. Very good, very good. So exactly that. We want, there would be 3 test cases that come from that one acceptance criteria bullet point. All right, so when we look at these bullet points, it's not a 1-to-1 ratio. Right? You got to read it and you got to see if there's more. In the case of the not mimic username, yes, it's a 1-to-1, right? There's only one username, there's only one scenario for that specific requirement. So let's do this again. So given user is on registration page.
And we can put URL, right?
Yeah, we could put the URL in test data, but you guys get it right now, right? I just don't want to spend too much time on this because I want to make sure we do SQL. But yes, thank you for correcting me, all right? You guys are on it. Given user is on registration page, when user inputs only, let's see, characters, terrible. Characters into both password fields, then both password fields contain password, right? Oops, didn't mean to do that. Password, and just for consistency, right? And rest of form is filled out, and see, and user clicks submit button, then error message is displayed, something, right? Yes, sir.
I have comment. But in this test case, you have to follow other rules, other requirements. So the password has contained one special character and at least eight digits.
Yes, that's what I told you.
So maybe at the second step, you have to input password doesn't include numbers or password doesn't include letters.
Exactly.
Yeah, good point. Good point.
Yeah, as I told you earlier, that we have to create, looking for that acceptance criteria, we have to create a ideal password and then follow that password. On each point, we can just exclude especially that acceptance criteria which not required, like which can be required, like.
Yeah, no, you make a perfect point, guys.
This, but put in test data the password.
Everything else will be good.
Yeah, we'll just do that then. So as opposed to having to like write all that extra stuff out, yeah. As test data, we can just provide the password, that ideal password, and then depending the requirements for that test case, you know, that's what should be changed.
And probably for this password, if you could just copy test cases and change.
Yeah, definitely. I already started thinking about that once I was doing it again. I was like, what am I doing this? All right, when user enter inputs only characters in both fields. So here we can put, I don't know what's a good password. Say tester, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that's a special character. Yeah, yeah.
And 8.
Yeah.
This is going to be ideal.
Oh no, sorry. Yeah, you're right. Should be only characters, right? Tester, and we'll do all like lowercase, right?
Yes and no.
No, I think we have to create ideal password right now and just take the part of it.
Let's create an ideal password, and then just from there we can include some characters.
Yeah, no, all right, give me an ideal password, guys. What's an ideal password?
Tester and 1, 2, 3.
Tester, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
No, it's not ideal.
Because it can't be.
You don't have to see requirement.
Yeah, for the whole requirements, it's going to be like
Test and
Minimum 8.
Minimum 8, yeah.
Yes,
minimum 8.
Yes, minimum.
Capital T. Oh yeah, because it needs to be one uppercase. One special character as well.
One number.
1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3. Right.
Yeah.
Inputs only characters in both password fields.
Yes.
Or
Yes.
In that case, do you mean inputs all characters?
Yeah, we can create like 10,
Inputs.
12, whatever, but minimum 8.
only characters.
Ideal.
Inputs only characters in both password fields.
Because in the task data, you have all characters, not just letters.
Well, yeah, because we need only letters. I mean, when I say character, you're right, though. That's right. So only letters into both password fields. So user inputs only letters into both password fields. And then, see, the only thing I
just change 1, 2, 3 for the letters.
Yeah.
That's it.
So, all right, so
We can leave special characters there.
tester.
But special characters has to be there. Yeah.
Right?
Why? It's only letters. Special character is not a letter.
What's it?
Well, the test case for this one is going to be that we are inputting only. Oh, I guess I jumped past the summary. But it's going to be a mixture of alphanumeric characters, right? And so this one, we're going to only put characters in this one, right? Or letters, rather, only letters in this one. Well, if we put a special character, though, it's not. We're not focusing on the alphanumeric part, right? We only want to focus on just letters being introduced, right? Why?
Because in this case, warning message gonna be like, for example, if we not gonna put a special character, warning message not gonna show you what you didn't put into your password. But if you put the special characters, the warning message has to be contained like you didn't put number.
But right now we don't know what the warning message is supposed to be, right?
We have to exclude like any possible.
So I see like you guys are like on it, right? And I see how you're trying to essentially validate all the other scenarios while omitting just this specific one. So you can see that error message. So it makes sense, yes, but at the same time, I personally feel that it's almost a little bit more complicated like that because we know that there's going to be other errors, right? But we want to just validate that there's one specific error message is shown. So even though we see the other errors being shown, if each one was listed, that would be fine because we're just validating that one specific error message.
Yeah, but my point is only about the that in this case, if we will create it like this, we will skip one of the acceptance criteria, not just this one we created test for, and also we will not gonna cover acceptance criteria other one. So it means that it's gonna be 2 possible mistakes in one test.
I disagree with that because we're going to have a test case for each of the scenarios, right? We have the test case for the username scenario. We're doing the test case right now for only letters, right? And want to make sure that we see alphanumeric message or that message of alphanumeric password must be entered.
Sure
but when we
error?
Yeah, but when we will start doing these test cases after functionality will work perfectly, right? When you will follow all these steps, and you will put just letters and try to exclude this test case, right? Not execute this test case. It's not gonna passive, because you will not gonna put special characters there as well.
But there's going to be another test case for that.
Yeah,
you
but
cannot be sure for 100% that
which one is
you
not correct?
got an error because of that mistake or another.
Another one.
Okay, okay. Oh, all right. I see what you're saying.
Right.
Gotcha. So the fact that we trying to think, right? You guys are on it, right? You guys are on it. Good job. So I'm trying to think though, because right now the current behavior is if you input any invalid password, you just have a generic message, right? There's nothing specific, right? Is there?
Yeah. I mean, no, just
If it's specific,
If
we
it's-
need to exclude only one. That's criteria.
You can specify
yeah,
a message.
All right, let's do that, guys. I'm with you. Let's do that.
we just exclude possibilities. That's it. It's
No.
not gonna.
But usually, like the error message says, like the password is incorrect. It should contain like specific characters and numbers. Usually, warning message says this.
With requirements, yeah. Warning message
Yeah.
with requirements, yeah.
Yeah. So you're all right.
It says like what you need to include in your password.
So you are right on that, right? But right now that's not the behavior of the application, and we don't have clarity in the acceptance criteria on what those messages are going to be when it's implemented, right? Because there could just be that generic message, or it could be specified, as you're pointing out, but we don't know that right now. So what these guys are saying is, let's basically cover all of our bases.
We just exclude the extra question.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. So we will put like special characters, and this test case for this acceptance criteria will work.
Yes, I agree with you. So boom, we need a special character. We have a minimum of 8 characters. This is only going to be letters for this case. And
we have lower and upper rate.
yes, we do. All right.
Yeah.
So that would be
Everything
valid.
everything
How
else.
about in the test step, you say one user excludes just numbers from the password?
So that was my initial thought process, right? That was the way I was developing this test case. And as the guys over here are pointing out, is they want to cover all the other scenarios, right? We want to make sure that we see that error message for that specific issue. And since right now we're not shown our all the requirements, right? If you input a bad password, like what a password's supposed to consist of, we don't know if it's failing because of the alphanumeric characters or the special characters or anything like that. So if we go ahead and have a password that does conform to the requirements, does meet the 1 special character, does meet the minimum of 8 characters, does meet the 1 uppercase character, when we have only letters, then we can, or in this case, when we don't have the alphanumeric, because we only have letters and 1 special character, we can validate, we can confirm that the error message is displayed for that specific alphanumeric requirement.
Yeah, because in the ideal scenario, it's going to be pop-up message or warning message with the requirements, and it's going to contains all
With
these
letters.
requirements,
Yeah.
and you will see in your
Special
password that you don't have a number, and you can just put the number. All other acceptance criteria will be good.
I agree. Yeah, no, you guys are right. So I'm just going to update this. When user inputs password, right? Because we're providing the test data in this case. All right. So when user inputs password in both password fields, this is going to be the password because, again, right, we want to make sure that it's making us put some digits, right? We need numbers in here.
And one more thing, can we like explain in the test data that we don't have just the numbers, like because we don't have to.
Yeah, we could.
Thinking
Right?
about what we
Exclude numbers, right?
Yeah.
You could, right?
But why you need to do this if you provide the password?
Yeah, but when you read it in the first time,
Maybe
you
we
will
can
see
put
you
in
don't.
description,
summary.
Yeah,
special case.
yeah, that's all.
Password.
Yeah,
Blah, 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 blah.
that's all.
Password does not contain any numbers. Error is displayed if password does not contain any numbers, right?
Yeah. And
Clear summary, right? We
yeah.
understand what we're doing. And so because we have that, I don't think we really need this. We're
Yeah,
providing the
sure.
test data.
But
Just
password
have to
itself,
summarize.
it's 10 characters.
It needs to be a minimum.
minimum. Yeah.
So we can have 10, we can have 15, it's fine. As long as it exceeds 8 characters.
Does that need to be communicated as we create a test case, that it needs to be a minimum of 8 characters and all the other recs? Or is
Well,
that-
yeah, there's going to be another test case to put less than 8 characters.
Yes.
So we are covering that scenario as well. Do we need to mention each acceptance criteria in all these stories? No, you don't need to, because the test case that we're creating is for that one specific scenario.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
All right, so right, given user is on registration page, when user inputs password into both password fields, we have this, numbers, boom, and rest of form is filled out, and user clicks submit button, then error message is displayed. Something, right? We don't know what the error message is, so again, something. You guys, hey, great job, right? Great job on that, totally. Like, I was doing it a little differently, and I like how you went about it. So let's create. All right, guys, so we created these 2 test cases so far. We already understand that we would do the same, like that same test case we did. It would be the opposite, right? So we would not have any letters, right? And we would only have numbers and that one special character and exceed the 8 characters minimum. And then, of course, we need the valid scenario as well, right? And so that would cover that bullet point. So do I have any questions around that?
Around this one,
No? We're feeling comfortable, my online folks?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Now, with that said, it's 11:15. I'm just trying to stick to timeline that I have. So we're gonna go ahead and take about a 10-minute break right now. If you guys have any issues or questions about this still, hopefully your team can help you out. If not, feel free to ping me if you need clarity on something, and we're gonna move past this to continue on right now, all right? So let's go ahead and take a 10-minute break and we'll resume.
Great.
All right. So wanted to revisit another test case, make sure we're all good on that. We were discussing this one real briefly, but listen, if there's any outstanding, what I think I'm gonna do is kind of like revisit these and allocate maybe like 10 minutes a session just to like touch on these, because I just don't want to, waste too much time right now on just this. So we'll revisit some of these other functional test cases throughout our sessions this week. So resumes are next. You guys have been working on your resumes. You guys have been refining the bullet points that you've been creating every sprint and seeing how you can add them to your resume, right? What makes sense. One of the questions I always get, or concerns that is always brought up, is I have no IT background, I have no QA background. What do I put? How do I, show I have skills and everything? So I'm going to share my personal resume with you guys. Now, I've been doing this for 6 years. I've hopped around to a couple different companies. So obviously, I have plenty of QA experience at this point. However, I did not start off like that. Military background, doing aviation hydraulics, nothing to do with computers and any of this stuff, right? So same thing. I needed to figure out what skill sets do I have that are transferable, that can kind of highlight my attention to detail, which is crucial to being a QA. You need to have good attention to detail, all right? You can't let those little things pass you up. So here's my resume. So first thing is, and I know Marina's gone over this with you guys already and showed you many different examples, and all those great examples. She gave great information, great resources. And I'm sure you guys have realized already that there are many different ways to write a resume, all right? So if anybody tells you that there's only one way to do it or you have to do it like this, no, you do not, all right? So whatever works for you, do it that way. We're gonna give you our advice and suggestions. At the end of the day, it's up to you to input that or revise your resume according to that critique and that advice, all right? I personally, this has proven very successful for me, this specific format, all right? You start off with a summary, and I'm talking about what I can like bring to the table essentially, right? I don't want to say just the things I've done, but these qualities are something that I can bring to the team, a value I can add off the board, all right? That summary is very important, I believe, because this is gonna be the first thing they read about you. So you wanna get it across to them that this is why you are a potential candidate, all right? And so in my case, I have that, process-oriented, performer, strong analytical and statistical skills, experience in agile development. Like that first sentence right there, I'm not necessarily talking about things I've done, but I'm talking about qualities and experience that I've gained over time that may be valuable to them, right? You need to be analytical when you're doing this kind of stuff. You need to be detail-oriented. If you understand statistics, that's a huge plus, all right? Especially depending the type of environment that you'd be in. And again, right, like I can deal with teams, I've managed different releases, I can instruct and all this stuff, right? Again, just the value. Don't get caught up in my details necessarily, because obviously my details don't apply to you, but the concepts apply, all right? You may have been in some sort of lead position in your company and just dealt with 2 other people, whether you're doing accounting, whether you're stocking shelves, whether you're a hairdresser, all right? It doesn't matter. There are skills that are in that profession that you're doing that are still transferable, that can highlight your skills. If you know how to manage personnel, if you know how to prioritize, if you know how to meet deadlines, all right? Those are all good skills that are transferable and you want to highlight on your resume, right? And notice everything I mentioned there isn't anything IT related specifically, right? Those are just general skills that are applicable to any industry. And that's what you want to highlight if you have no IT experience. So keep that in mind. And I'm just going to scroll past like all this technical stuff because one thing I'll just touch on real quick is I also personally like to have a 1 or 2 sentence summary of what I'm doing or what I did in that role, all right? Some people just put nothing but bullet points to kind of explain their role. And within those bullet points, it's also mixed in accomplishments, right? You want to separate those out, right? You want to make it very easy to read, very consumable, understandable. So if you can go ahead and just put a 1 or 2 line sentence of what that role did, that's how you should start it off. So all of my experience starts off with a 1-2 line sentence, right? 1-2 line sentence. And if I have any accomplishments that I did during that time, I put that as the bullet point, right? It separates the two. You want to be able to highlight those accomplishments and also explain what you did in that role.
Robert, question, what's the font that you used? I like that it's very wide and like round.
I have no idea, but let's see. Avenir?
Oh, never mind. It says at the top. Thanks.
Yeah. I'll be honest with you, I did not select this explicitly, so probably just by default resume template. So yeah, but Avenir, check that out.
Very easy to read.
Yeah. One thing I did do, I did like customize the spacing between each line. In my case, I have a decent amount of experience, so I wanted it to be readable. Some people are kind of still in the mindset that your resume needs to be 1 page, or it could be many pages, all right? I've gone through, at this point, hundreds of resumes, all right? I used to interview on a regular basis. Now, being a contractor, luckily I don't have to deal with any of that stuff. But I've seen resumes in all different formats and all different lengths. My personal advice, and again, there's not one way to do a resume. My personal advice is if you don't have a ton of work experience, all right, there's no reason your resume should be multiple pages, right? If you have a ton of work experience, great. Well, let's figure out what's relevant and what should be mentioned in your resume and what can be omitted, all right? And kind of trim down that resume if possible. Again, it doesn't need to be 1. If it's 2, that's fine, but it definitely shouldn't be 8 or 12 pages. I've gotten resumes that were like 8, 12 pages before. Ridiculous. Ridiculous. I'm not reading all that. I'm not. And half the stuff on there was just like keywords that they just kept putting over and over mostly, right? So that's not really interesting to me. I want to know what you did and what your role entailed. That's all. So of course, start and end date, companies. And then so this is kind of what I wanted to roll into, right? So none of this is IT related. This is how I started off in the industry. Now, over time, I've cut this down because I didn't need to kind of talk about some of this as much because it's not that interesting to the companies I'm trying to apply for. But what I'm highlighting, and notice everything's quantifiable, right? I have numbers, whether it's cost savings, whether it's the amount of percentage that I was able to reduce processes, the amount of people I was able to instruct, the amount of classes I've done. Everything should be quantifiable to the best of your ability. No one is going to challenge your numbers unless you have something outrageous, all right? A buddy of mine had something along the lines of like, I don't know, he generated like, I don't know, several millions of dollars for this one company. And that number he put was like a rather large percentage of their overall annual revenue. It's like, dude, you're a graphic designer, great, you made an image, but you did not contribute to like 60% of the annual revenue based off of that one image that you did, all right?
Robert, what would be some of the examples of those achievements within the QA field? Can you think on the top of your head? How you contributed to the success of the company and whatnot?
Oh, okay. Yeah, for sure. As far as like QA, generally, just speaking, not on my own right now, one would be, of course, developed progression suite that contributed to 80% of test coverage for the application. Identified bugs prior to release that could have impacted sales by X amount of percent. Streamlined testing processes that allowed us to test within 2 hours as opposed to 5 hours, right? Coordinated training with other QA team members so everyone has a deeper understanding of the application, allowing for more independent testing, all right? Like these are all just generic examples I'm pulling out on top of my head, but these are all things that you're going to be involved with on a regular basis. And it's up to you to kind of take that lead and have that in your thought process and see how can I improve it? What can I really contribute? Even though it might seem trivial or it might not seem very technical or a big, demand by management, these are all things that add value to the process. My background comes from Lean Six Sigma, all right? So I'm very process oriented. And all that means, if you're not familiar with that, is I deal with improving processes, all right? If there's a variation in a process, I do my best to take out as much variation as possible from that process, all right? Six Sigma is just a statistical reference, all right? And basically, the less variation there is in the process, the tighter the bell curve is on the statistical chart, all right? So all that means is if you have a Six Sigma company, right, and there's a handful of them out there, Motorola is one of them, Toyota is one of them, a lot of these big companies are rated Six Sigma companies. And all that means is for every million opportunities that you have, there are only going to be 3.6 defects per million opportunities, all right? So what that means for those companies is it's cheaper for them to replace a defective product. So in the case of Motorola, they make 1 million Motorola Razors, right? There's going to be 3.6 of those phones that are bad, as opposed to employing a QA team to go through each device. It's cheaper for them to just replace those 3.6 devices whenever a customer gets them and complains about them than it would be to employ a whole team of QA personnel to inspect each and every item, all right? To be Six Sigma, it's a huge accomplishment, right? That means your process is very efficient. It's very streamlined. There's no variation, all right? You don't need to worry about a lot of defective products going out there. And so that helped me kind of transfer into this field, not so much because I'm applying those same types of statistical methodologies, into the QA field, but the concept is the same, all right? If you have a testing process that varies constantly, if you're not going through, say, all the test cases that you have in your test case management tool before a release, and you're picking and choosing, and you're doing things randomly, right? That's variation. You're not testing it the same way you tested it last time or the time before that. And so you're leaving yourself open for bugs, defects, issues, all right? And so without having to apply anything statistically, I understand that I want to eliminate variation from a process, right? If a developer is, say, just going about certain things a different way, they write code, they're not reusing certain methods in the code, or they're not following certain standards that were in place to ensure everything is a uniform development practice, there's a lot of variation, right? And that's going to introduce bugs. So in my case, right, without having any IT background, I'm able to kind of highlight that thought process, that understanding, and show how that can overlap into what I would do as a QA engineer, all right? So even if you're doing accounting, all right, you're gonna be looking at spreadsheets, you're dealing with money, right? And in certain cases, if something is off by a penny or a decimal, that can have huge ramifications down the process, right? And so even something as simple as that, right? You can highlight those skills that you've been doing this whole time, all right? You have been ensuring that the reports are up to the expected quality standards, all right? And you have done, say, I don't know, manage accounting, let's say, manage accounting forms for a team of 250 people dealing with multi-millions of dollars, ensuring that, or, right, that could be the summary. And then for one of the bullet points of that, the accomplishment, right, is I'm sure in some cases you've caught issues, right? Caught one issue that resulted in preventative savings of, you know, $1,000, $500,000, $1 million, whatever it is, right? These are all things that you can show that show your attention to detail, that quality that is important, right? So again, it doesn't matter what field you're in. Like, I used to have a lot more on this, but it's cut down over time just because I've just tried saving space. I try keeping my resume limited. But does anyone have any questions on that? We good online? All right, cool. So again, just keep that in mind as you, oh, and then again, write the bullet points, right? You already know them. So the bullet points needs to be kind of in this kind of format, right?
So it should be in like a Word? Not as a Word.
Yeah, Word, because it's still going to be edited, right? And you want us to be able to add some notes or comments and move things around. So Word's a good format. All right, now SQL. So how far did you guys get on this?
First.
Okay, so
First, yeah, task.
All right. So I really like SQL Vault. I think SQL Vault is a great website. It does a really good job of giving you the information you need. And yeah, very simple. It gives you the information you need in small consumable pieces, and it kind of walks you along through the process. Exactly, right? And things get gradually harder, and it even gives you the answer if you can't figure it out. So I think SQL Vault is just a fantastic resource. Definitely use it. Try to make your way through all of the exercises, all right? Today, we're going to, as a class, go through some of these exercises, talk a little bit more about relational databases, and again, on Monday, that's when we'll start diving into the WoStart database, and you can see how all that's structured. And hopefully some of you guys and gals can have the VPN and vBeaver set up on your local machines. So who wants to first tell me what a relational database is? Who understands what a relational database is? In class, online?
It's like all databases is like tables, and these tables is connected to each other's.
Yeah, I mean, that's it, right? Your explanation is spot on, right? There, we have multiple tables that exist, all right? And within these tables, there are columns. Knowing that, say, for WoStork, we have, when you create an account, and when you go through the registration process, it's going to contain what? Your first name, your last name, maybe your zip code, and your email, right? Some basic information. So with that understanding, we can create this one table. This one table will exist within the database containing that basic information. Now, if I were to have one table that contained everything, that would be very problematic, right? I can't contain all of your order history and your preferences and your medical recommendations and all this stuff within one table, right? I can't sort through it easily. And in some cases, I need to create, like when you place an order, right? There's gonna be a new record created every time for that. So I don't necessarily need that in the users table, but I need a way to connect, right? Link a relationship between the users that exist in that one table and the orders that have been placed, right? And then we have that high level order, right? That, hey, this order was placed by this person and there was this much money and it was from this dispensary. Great, but there's more information to that, isn't there? What's gonna be another level down, another level deeper? This,
Other order.
what's that?
What was the other order after this? Like,
well, yes, but before we even get to that, right, we're still on this initial order. What items were in that order, right? So I do need to have a separation, right? So we have a, say, general orders table, and then we have the items ordered table, right? And so look at this, right? I have initial relationship from a users table, and I can see that this user placed an order, and I can find that order in this orders table. Now, I want to also know the items that were ordered. And so now I can go ahead and see in the items ordered table, those specific items that were ordered, right? And all this other information that comes along that process. And you're gonna be using some sort of an ID or some sort of key, a primary key that creates this association or relationship from one table to another, all right? Now, I understand what I said right now might not make full sense, it might not make total sense right now, and we're gonna go through it. But just understand, right? A relational database just allows us to have data stored in a way that has a relationship from one table to another table, all right? And again, we're gonna go through this, and hopefully it'll make a little more sense. Here's a great example of a table right now, right? I have this vehicles table, fantastic. Now there's gonna be more information related to these vehicles for sure, and there's gonna be other types of vehicles out there. If I wanted to say find out more information about this Ford Focus, there could be a make or vehicles details table, right? And I can use this ID, right, which is related to a Ford Focus, and I can go into the vehicles details table and say select say star, because that's going to be our wild card. Again, we'll get into it if you guys haven't done that already, where ID is equal to 1, and that's going to return me all the vehicle detail information for a Ford Focus. All right. So let's get into this a bit. So you guys may have already started with some of these select statements. All right, so here we have a basic select statement, and this is going to be the format that we follow, right? We want to do select, but what do we want to select? The columns, right? And so we can go ahead and write out explicitly each column we want, or we can go ahead and use a wildcard. And when we say wildcard, all that is an asterisk, the star, all right? So using that star basically says that, hey, I want every column that exists, just return it to me. And so that's just an easy starting point, right? Because you're not going to know everything that exists, so just use star most of the time. That's how I started off, and you start getting more familiar with the database. So it's either you can specify the column names, or just like this, select star, for all the columns, and you want to specify from what table, all right? So the from indicates where the information should be pulled from. So generally, right, on a high level, that's what you need to understand, all right? We have these keywords, select and from. Select says which columns we want, and from specifies where the columns are coming from, right? The table that it's coming from. So,
Hey, Robert,
yes, sir.
when I was trying to use this, I wanted to try to retype select over and over, like press enter and type select as a new line, but that didn't work.
Select as a new line, like have multiple select statements in there?
Yeah,
That won't work for this.
but it should work in a,
It can
in a
work.
normal.
Yeah, normally that would work. You can have multiple select statements existing within one window, and you're just going to highlight the one that you want executed. But for this online IDE, you can't do that.
So it's just specific to this one.
Exactly, just specific to this one. All right, so this first one, right? So what's the requirement? Find the title of each film. Select, exactly. I want you guys to try to walk me through this, right?
We did it with
Did we do all these?
Yeah.
Yeah? All right, I'm just going to move past these.
Yes, we did.
Does anybody have any questions on this then? No? We're all solid on this? Okay. I'm just going to move on then. So now we have constraints. Did you guys work on this?
No.
All right, cool.
In class now.
So constraints. We have some of these, some companies you go to, I mean, pretty much every company you can go to, right? There's gonna be a lot of information. A lot of information, and we need to filter the information. We don't want everything returned to us. We want something specific returned to us, right? Whether it's someone who has a specific ID, a specific name, we want to find a range of something. We want to exclude certain things, right? So we need to use constraints or filters in a sense, right? So we can have the specific items returned to us that we want. So here we have our where clause, right? And so using the where, you guys already know, right? Select, from, and then we have where. Where is going to allow us to add those conditional filters so we can get the specific information we want returned to us. Now, you can go ahead and compound that, and because in many cases you're going to want multiple conditions met, right? Where this is a registered user who has placed an order and email is like something, right? And so we can have multiple conditions applied, and all that's it's going to all be utilizing the and keyword, right? So we're going to compound off of that. And of course, we can also use or. So one or another, right? So what if it meets this condition and this condition or this condition, right? Once you start kind of getting into select statements that have lots of filters like that, it can start getting a little confusing and a little complex because without realizing it, you might be excluding certain data that you wanted to retrieve at first, right? So you need to be sure those filters are written in a logical order. So these are some of the basic operators that we have as well, all right? So here we have equal to, not equal to. Whenever you see an exclamation point, that is a not equal to, all right? So it's a little weird, I know.
It's from Java.
I don't even know why Java did that, though. I mean, here's Java, C#. It's like that in every programming language, right? There might be one exception, but not that I know of. As far as I know, every programming language has that exclamation point. And when you see that exclamation point, that means not equal to, all right? No one's excited about anything. So that's not what the exclamation point is, just not. And then, of course, we have between and. So we have between the range. This is where we want ranges, right? So between the dates, right? So we have a date range. So between this date and this date. And sometimes not between, right? Not between this date and this date, right? Those users might have been archived users. Those might no longer be valid users, right? All sorts of different scenarios. And that's how come we have all these different keywords to utilize for our querying purposes. So you can also use this in keyword if it's a list, and I kind of use in a lot, and so it just simplifies things. So as opposed to having a bunch of ands, and is this, and is this, and is this, right? You can just do this in, right? So as long as this ID has a value in this range of 2, 3, or 2, 4, 6, as opposed to that general range, that works as well. I know you're a little, you got a little confused by that. Don't worry, we're gonna go through it. It's just easier to see.
No, man, I mean, I understand, but I didn't get what you're saying.
So if I want 5 specific users returned to me, right? As opposed to using and ID is equal to this, and or this, or this, or this, I can go ahead and put and ID is in, and I'm just passing a list of those IDs, right? And of course, not in as well. So let's do some exercises. So find the movie with a row ID of 6. Who wants to help me out?
Select ID.
Select ID.
Title.
Where ID?
Equal 6.
Get the movie.
ID.
Well, actually, right? Well, we want the movie, right?
Yeah,
select the movie.
ID.
So title from movies.
What
No.
ID?
Title,
You need
where
ID
ID
of 6.
Mm-hmm.
So ID.
Where ID? 6.
Oh yeah, right? Makes sense.
So shouldn't you put title, comma, ID from movies?
Well, I don't.
ID equals 6.
I don't need the ID returned to me, right? So when we see the results that are returned, it's only giving me this titles column. I could include.
But it's asking the row.
It's asking for the movies. It's asking for the movies, or rather, the movie with a row ID of 6, right?
So a row should be displayed as well, right?
You don't need row.
No, not full row.
Because all we want is whatever movie has.
Can you just put like title,
Sure.
comma, ID, or ID, comma, you see?
Mhm.
Shows ID.
Yeah, of course.
So find the movie with the row ID of 6.
So we already.
So how should you know that you find correct ID?
Because when we started off, right, we had the select star, right? Star from, what's this called? Movies, right? Oh yeah, thank you. So, I mean, we can see all the data that's right here right now. And looking at these, I can see everything. And this is telling me I want a movie with the row ID of 6. So I don't necessarily care to see that the column is there and it's 6. Knowing that I'm using this constraint, this filter, this where clause, it's returning the movie with that ID, right? But to your point, yeah, you could totally just add that, right? We can add additional columns if we
Because
want.
this is a small table, right?
Mhm.
If you have like a huge table, with many rows, many like columns,
Mhm.
you should use it, right? So
It doesn't matter.
you cannot remember everything.
It really doesn't matter because you're using the constraint. You're explicitly saying that I want a movie with this ID, right? So even though you can't see it, it's returning a movie with that ID, right? So you don't need it, but can you include it? Yeah, definitely, right? In most cases, more information isn't bad. In some cases, it is, all right? So keep that in mind. All right, next one. Find the movies released in the years between 2000 and 2010.
Select title year.
The year between 2000 and
Like title.
year.
Do we need year? Let's see.
Because, no, in this case, you can see like.
Let's see that, all right?
The year.
Where year is between, I'm not sure, I forget sometimes, we'll see. 2000 and 2010.
Jeez, no.
Probably not. Nope.
Yeah.
There we go. All right. See, listen, I use SQL on a semi-regular basis, right? But I don't have everything memorized. A lot of times I'll put something like is or if something's a little off. You just play around with it, right? As long as you get the concepts. Or rather not, well, this is going to be past concepts. As long as you understand how to resolve that issue and get the results back, right? But those little things happen. All right, cool, right? Makes sense. So we have this range of movies returned to us.
And this words like between and it doesn't matter like if they're all like uppercase, lowercase.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Usually when you generate a default query, like usually those keywords are all going to be capitalized just for reading purposes, but it really doesn't matter. Yeah. It's going to execute as long as it's the right format. All right, next one. Find movies not released. Right? Not between. Booyah. Find the first 5 Pixar movies and their release year.
I found a couple ways to do it.
There are a couple of ways to do a lot of these, right? So the way that I'm showing you right now, like the between, right? You don't necessarily need to use that between keyword, right? You could have used the less than or greater than signs, right? To also indicate a range. So there's many different ways to write the same query. And for the queries that we're going to be utilizing or we're going to be focusing on, right? It doesn't really matter. But when you start doing more complex queries and start doing a bunch of joins and you're dealing with millions of rows of data, that's when efficiency is going to start becoming a little bit more important. And in those cases, yeah, you want to see what's the best way to go about it. But right now, it's all fine. All right, so find the first 5 Pixar movies and their release year. Let's see, how do we go about this one? Let's do this. Reset this. What do you guys think?
5.
All right.
Year. No? You should have select title, comma year.
All right, let's do that.
The year is less or equal.
Where?
There we go. So where?
Year.
And we can use.
Well, we want.
We need year, right? So the year is less or equal to 2003.
So are these in date order? Yes, they are. All right, that should work. Let's see where year is less than 2003.
Less or equal.
Or less or equal to 2003. Oh yeah, good job. All right, makes sense. Any questions online, folks?
No.
I see Alexi, yes, thank you. You are on it.
Yeah, but in this case, we have to count manually how many years. So 2003, it's 5.
Exactly, right? Need to know in this case. Baby steps, right?
Yeah.
There's going to be more complex queries as we start moving through this.
Yes.
All right, so now we have queries with constraints. So here we want like a specific column name to be this or not equal to that, or rather the column name value not to equal this, not to equal that, right? So we have this, we have these different keywords or these different operators over here, like, not equal to, all right, or this inequality comparison. So both of these are essentially the same thing, right? Not equal to. Now this is also a very useful operator because a lot of times you're going to have a general idea of the data that you want, but you don't know exactly what the data is that you want. So think of if I wanted to go through my user table and I wanted to see everybody that has a Gmail address, right? Well, oh my God, I'm not gonna go, I don't know everybody's Gmail address in there, right? But I do know everyone's email address will end with @gmail.com, right? So I can use that percent sign, that percent operator, to use as like another type of wild card. So if I put that, we'll go through it, but you'll see, yeah.
Yeah, if you put it in front, you're going to put all that variation before
It's like
email
search
account.
word.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly
after
that. Mm-hmm. You guys are doing good. You guys all seem to be on it right now.
Up to 8, I hope.
All right, some more exercises, right? We want to find all the Toy Story movies. How are we going to do this?
Title.
What are we going to do? All right. Select title,
The title.
where, title, like.
Then
So, like percent sign.
no, not just.
Well, before we get to the percent sign, what do we
I
need?
forget how it's called.
A single quote. A single quote, all right? Single quotation mark.
Or why single?
So in SQL, you use a single quotation mark to wrap text in it, right? So whenever you're searching for text, it's not going to be a double quotation mark.
But in the test, it says double.
Where?
Here. Name ABC, like ABC.
I think it's just for the purposes of like this example. Watch, we'll go through it right now.
Okay.
So first, look, let's do the double actually, just to start off with. So start percent.
Toy Story.
Toy. Well, toy.
I think
No,
sorry. Fine, all.
Not gonna work. And yeah,
You need to put Toy Story, percent, and toy.
All right, we're not getting anything. Toy Story after percent, right? Yeah. So toy, and then percent. Booyah. So okay,
Why
yeah.
we cannot do like Toy Story percent?
So we could.
No, we can. We're gonna get the same results.
Yeah, we could do. We can add the full Toy Story, and it's going to be the full
Should we,
result.
like, start with percent, then toy, and end with percent.
No.
No, because
Like
it
it
start
was
with
an
this word toy.
Oh.
So if you like, we got for example, results Toy Story and Toy Story like something or toy another word after the word
play,
like
toy,
a toy.
Simple thing.
and we're gonna see all that results, and then we can specify it with the word story, and then with the percentage. We've got the Toy Story.
Exactly.
And anyway, we can do like with 2 words or with 1 word.
Yeah. Either way, you would have gotten the same result set back, right? But we didn't have to add that extra one. And to your point, right? All right, yeah. So it looks like we can use double quotes, but when you're actually using like SQL Server Management Studio, single quotes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
can you reset it?
Yeah, sure. I'll do this. All right.
I did try. I got it.
So when you use at least for this, it works both single quotes or double quotes is working for this online IDE or online database tool. When you use SQL Server Management Studio, when you use Postgre, it's going to be single quote. It's going to be single quote.
So it's basically just to use a single.
Just use single quote. Just get used to it.
About
Yeah, forget about that. But yeah, good observation though, right? All right. Next one. Find all movies directed by John Lasseter. Where's my dude John? All right.
Title, director.
All right. All right.
Director.
Title from movie.
Director.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. For movies. Where? Director.
You have to find movies.
Title.
Oh, man.
And then
All right, guys. Title, right.
The director, like.
Where? Well, do we need like?
We can use it.
Yes.
Why do we need like?
Because we need to
No,
find
we-
specific director.
Yeah, but
Because so
we
many
have
John-
already John Leicester. We have to find especially this guy, not Toy Story 1, 2, 3, something.
I would put like.
No, we can use
And
not
his last
like
name.
this one. We can use.
I mean, we
not
have
background,
specific name.
background.
So I mean, I love the thought process, right? The thought is good, right? We're all good, doing good right now. So I totally understand you, right? You can just do like, right? Use the like, throw that wild card out there, so you have all the result sets returned. But we know exactly what we're looking for. We're not unsure of what his first name is, or we're not unsure of what his last name is. We know exactly what his name is. So since we know the specific data that we're looking for, we shouldn't use like, because potentially there could be other Lassiters that exist.
Leicester Alexander, for example, it's gonna show you the third person
No.
as well. But in this
I'm
case, it will
talking about like to sort by his last name.
Exactly, right? So even by the last name
So-
only,
yeah,
right?
but you will have, for example, not
No,
John.
like
You will have like
Alexander Lassiter.
Oh, so
Alexander
last name,
Leicester.
Junior,
You will have the
sir.
same like in
Yeah.
the results. You will have all that results
Mhm.
at the end. But in this case, you will have only this guy.
So that's just the only problem, though, right? So if you do it like that, there could be other Lassiters that exist. We only want one Lassiter, John
If
Lassiter.
we do like and,
And
John
then-
Leicester, it will give us the exact results that we need.
So yes, you are right. You are right. In
Yeah,
this
because you
case,
already know this only that one.
yeah, because we can see all the data. But what if you're dealing with millions of rows, right? Like you can't see everybody that exists easily. I mean, there's ways to, but
Unless,
now you're talking about more complex queries.
unless we can put one more where.
We could, but we want to keep it simple,
Well,
right?
I mean, after that, okay, but we don't have to do it.
So since we know the name, it's going to be John. Oops. Oh yeah. Ah, look at that. I just put double quotes too. See? So we got exactly what we wanted. We know who we're looking for. We can just use that straight up equal. All right, next one. Find all the movies and director.
Just put the
Exclamation
question mark
point.
there.
Find and director, not director. Exactly, right? Boom. Now we can also do what? This, right?
Yes.
Boom. That still works, right? Both of them are the same. It works. And just like you were putting like before, yeah, you would have gotten the result set that you wanted returned to you, but as the table grows, it might be problematic because there could be other last names. But you know, you're good. You're right with it. All right, now last one. Find all the wall movies.
So here we will use like.
Type. Select type.
So let's do select title from movies. Where title like
Wall.
Slash.
Symbol.
Dash.
No, we have to put exactly wall as it all the uppercase letters.
well, let's see. Let's try. All right. So what am I missing?
Percentage.
All right. Do I need the dash?
Yeah.
No. Doesn't matter. So
So what is the
uppercase
percentage?
or
In this case, it doesn't matter. But when I go deeper, and it's it matters because when you put, for example, if we will say
Yeah,
we
he's
will
right.
say United States, it has to be United with the uppercase level letter U and States as well. But if you put United and small s and the word States, it's not gonna show you any results. So I mean,
it's just like statement.
I did
Like statement, I think it's kind of similarities. not
later on.
Exactly. But you're right, right? And so these are the things you're going to encounter as we keep moving through this. All right, cool. Any questions on that so far, guys?
Yeah, so what was the percentage?
That? Oh, it's anything after this word, right? So if you put a percentage sign after the word, that means you want to find everything that matches the first part of this word and anything after, right? So we don't know, in this case, like we have wall E, we have wall G. We know that we want results returned with wall. We just don't know what's after it. So I can use that % sign after it to get those results returned to me.
Just put it before, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry?
If like,
exactly, right?
Yeah.
So if I know the end,
Oh.
exactly. So if I know the end of the text that I want, then I can go ahead and put that % in the beginning. Or if I knew that this was the only movie that has that dash sign, right? I can go ahead and put % dash %. Let's see if it works, right? Right? So there's many different ways to write this stuff. All right, yeah, now we start getting more fun stuff right now. So I think, let's see, we have a couple minutes. I'm trying to think about how I want to do this with you guys. Well, first off, all right, I'm going to talk about this with you guys. And then it's already in one of your assignments for this week, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm just going to go over the concepts with you on this, and then you guys start off on it. And again, it'll help you through it. So if you can't, you'll get the answer, and we'll continue on, or rather address any specific issues that you guys might have with it starting Monday. Sound good? Yeah. Cool. So it's very, there's so many different keywords when it comes to SQL, and there's so many different functions, and the functions you'll get into it, I think, in the next page, all right? In some cases, we need distinct or unique values that are returned to us, right? So in the case of, say, I don't know, I want, we have some examples over here. I'm trying to think of one. I'm just like, so I know it'll give us one right here, but we'll use the distinct keyword to blindly remove duplicate rows, all right? Oh, I got a perfect one. So think of you have a users table, right? And in some cases, you have families that use the same email address, all right? So you can have a family of 4, and all of them are using the same email address. However, in our system, there are 4 different accounts for them, all right? Because usually emails are not going to be a unique identifier, all right? Because again, right, it could be reused potentially. And so we may want to return only unique or distinct emails, right? So all of the duplicated emails would be removed. So we could do something like select distinct email from users table. And now we've filtered out all of those duplicate emails. And this specific scenario I'm talking about is related to email marketing, right? I don't want to send 5 of the same emails to the same email address, all right? Then that's going to cause a whole bunch of other problems when it comes to your email service provider and your email scoring and all this stuff, right? So in cases like that, we want to filter things out. That's just one example that comes to mind right now. And then, of course, we might need to order things. So we have a bunch of orders that were placed, and we want to see the order, or we want to see all the orders in date order, right? And so we can go ahead and filter those results and have them in ascending order or descending order, depending if we want to see the oldest order or the newest order, right? And so simple things like that, right? So using that order by keyword, all right, and indicating the column that we wanted ordered by, we can go ahead and sort the data a bit more. Now, it's very important to remember, though, the order of all of these statements. You can't put order by before you have a where clause, right? So order by is going to be at the very end of your query, all right? And where, of course, needs to come after you've already indicated the from. Where is this information coming from? It's coming from this table. And where, now you can start applying those constraints, those filters. And then you can go ahead and order by if you want.
So order by is going to be always at the end?
So when you start doing, like, because you can have subqueries, all right? I don't want to get into all this right now, but you can have more complicated queries that you're still going to see the order by at the end, but it's continued. Then there's another query that is a subquery to that main query that's doing all these other joins and stuff.
Because, for example, like limit of limit 5 is gonna be before or after?
Limit is going to be after. See, that's a good point, right? So if you're using, right, but again, everything has their order,
Yes,
basically. That's what I'm pointing out. But
no,
yeah.
I just that you say that it's gonna be on like in every end. So
Yeah, sorry, but good point you just put out there. Yeah, and funny enough is I actually wasn't even aware of that limit by or offset by keyword until like a few months ago. Because when you use, so I was trying to do one of the queries that I was asking, and when you use like SQL Server Management Studio or even Postgre, you have the ability to limit the amount of results that are returned by using top keyword. And so you would do select top 1, top 5, top 20, right? And so I was trying to solve that question doing it like that. I was like, why isn't this working? And come to find out, right, there's other keywords that you can use. And I'm no master when it comes to SQL. I'm good. Like I'm pretty good. Like I can do a lot. I can do all sorts of joins, but I'm no database administrator, right? Those guys, I got to be really sharp with it. But give me C#, like that's my specialty right there. And then, as he was just pointing out right now, right, we have this limit and we have this offset, right? And so we can use the limit to limit the amount of rows that are returned to us, right? Another way to go about it, as I just mentioned, there could be a top keyword, and you can put the specific number that you want returned to you. So you have this limit, and then you have offset, all right? And so when we say offset, basically that's saying that, hey, we want to have, I'm sorry?
From where we start.
Exactly, right? So we're gonna, from the starting point, we're gonna offset this. We're gonna push the starting point up a little bit. And as opposed to starting on the first row, we're gonna start on, say, the 10th row, right? And from that 10th row, which is the offset, we want only a limit of 5 rows returned to us, all right? Let's see. If you think about websites like Reddit or Pinterest, the front page is a list of links sorted by popularity and time, and each subsequent page can be represented, blah, blah, blah. Oh, yeah, it's a good one, though. All right, guys. So let's do this first one. List all directors of Pixar movies alphabetically without duplicates. So I'm assuming these are all Pixar movies, so we don't need to worry about filtering for Pixar movies. All right. So what do we think, guys? What are we going to do? Yep, we got to select. I'm sorry?
Directors.
Select, yeah, select all directors, right? Or list all directors. So let's misspell this. There we go. Do we want distinct right now? Right. List all directors.
Right now?
Oh, without duplicates. Yes, you're right. Thank you. Distinct. This.
So we can put it in brackets.
There we go. Distinct director for movies, right? Cool. We got that one. And now what else?
Where? Director.
Director. Actually, let's see. Do we want where though?
No.
No, we don't, right? Because we want to just sort the data, right?
Yeah.
So we've already filtered out all the duplicates. We have the director we want.
Yeah.
So we can just do what? Order by, right? Order by what? Well, before we even do that, we need to order by a specific column, right? So director. Director. Descend. Oh, ascending. Boom. Is that right? Sweet. Yes, it is. Fantastic. All right. And so that's what you guys are going to keep going through for these next 3, all right? And continue on through this if you want. However, with that said, I just want to jump ahead real quick.
Sorry, quick question. Is there a way to make them alphabetically by last name?
So in this case, since the data exists in one column, right, you can't just order by the last name. Now, there are ways to do that, all right? There's ways to split it, right? There's ways to split the data, and you're going to parse it, and you're going to find some sort of identifier, right? But you don't got to worry about that right now. One thing I just want to jump to real quick is, let's see, simplest one. Where is it? So the joins, we'll be touching on joins this week, right? So please, you guys should read into it at least a little bit, or watching the videos, they're going to be talking about joins, so you'll be a little familiar with it. You don't need to worry about, like, once we start getting to 10, you don't, that's great. I'm not saying don't, right? But I'm just simply saying, for time purposes, because not everyone has a ton of time, I don't want them to waste time, but you don't need to. You don't need to really worry about anything after 10. Again, with that said, you should I definitely recommend that you do it at some point. But if your time is limited, as long as you complete up to 9 and understand those concepts, you're good. When you have extra time, continue going through the rest of it. All right. So, do I have any questions about this? Anybody online? I'll take that as a no. All right. You guys good over here?
Yes.
Fantastic. All right, guys. Well, that's all I have for you today. I will see you all on Monday, and we'll start diving into the WoStark database and talk a little bit about joins. All right, guys. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.